Okay, so let's start to talk about the physiological needs today. So that's chapter 4. So far we talk about general framework to study motivation and emotion. And we talk about historical perspectives, and also we talked about brain structures associated with motivations and emotions. So starting from today, we are going to talk about different kinds of needs. So needs are one type of motives, right? So there are three types of motives: needs, cognitions, and emotions. So starting from today, we're going to talk about needs. And today we're going to talk about physiological needs. And there are different types of needs: physiological, psychological, and implicit needs. So just for a review, what a need is. It is a condition within an individual, and this condition is essential for growth, both physiological and psychological, for growth, well-being, and life. Also, really important for survival of the individual. So that is a need. So when needs are satisfied, everything is good. Individuals can grow biologically and psychologically. This person can develop multiple skills, can be more mature psychologically, and can gain a lot of more psychological resources, such as self-efficacy and so forth. Also have a high level of well-being. So well-being is based on my own understanding, well-being is a index or it's a barometer for the quality of the individual's life. So if all the needs are satisfied, people have a high level of well-being. So well-being is just like can tell you how well this person can adapt to the environment, how well the person has a life. So what if the needs are thwarted or not satisfied? So researchers use this word, thwart, to mean that the needs are not satisfied. When the needs are not satisfied, the body uses all kinds of motivational and emotional states to try to avoid serious and life-threatening damage. Because when needs are not satisfied, both physiological and psychological, it can result in serious damages in life. No matter it's damage, there are damages to body or damages to your cognition or damages to emotions. That can lead to various damages. So at this moment, our bodies use different resources to avoid these damages. But this attempt may not be adaptive, may not be functioning. Ray and Deci, so the developers of self-determination theory, we'll talk about next week. They found that all kinds of mental disorders are results of the attempt to avoid serious damages. So we do something, our body does something to avoid these damages because our needs are not satisfied. But these attempts are not adapted either. So they may result in mental disorders. And there are three types: physiological, such as thirst, hunger, and sex. Psychological needs, we will talk about that in 2 weeks. And implicit needs, we'll talk about those in 3 weeks. So today just focus on physiological needs. Yeah.
Can you give an example of a mental disorder to like, and what you were saying it that goes with our needs or I didn't get it.
So, for example, depression disorder. So why they have depression disorder? Because they have constant depression. Because they are sad about their life. So it's a reaction to the conditions that the needs are not satisfied. So, but they use the emotion depression to react to those situations. But too much depression may bring depressive disorders. So I'll read their papers and know about this. I'm not really familiar with that part. So right now I cannot really answer your question. So if probably you can post a question maybe next week or 2 weeks later. So that's need. And there are different types of needs. So based on the dimension of biology and psychology, there are physiological needs and psychological needs. But there are other ways to differentiate different types of needs. So one way to differentiate is based on the direction of the motives. So all motives, all needs can energize and sustain behavior. So all needs can bring the energy and the persistence of behaviors. But the only difference is the direction of the behavior. So sometimes, so for example, hunger can direct us toward food. Thirst can direct us toward water, because we need different resources to maintain our balance in the body. So we have different types of needs that direct us toward different objects and resources. The second way to differentiate different types of needs is a comparison between deficiency and growth needs. So deficiency needs are activated by a state of deprivation, and it produces an urgent and emergency-like response to reduce or remove the deficit. So it's linked to tension-packed emotions such as anxiety, frustration, and pain. So, for example, there is a state of sleep deprivation. So we don't have enough sleep. So at this time, we have a negative emotion as the response to this deficit. And this response, this emotion is so negative, and the purpose of the emotion is to reduce the deficit or remove the deficit. And also the other type of needs are growth needs. They are activated when the needs are satisfied, when there are no deficits in the body or in our mind. So these needs are less urgent and tense. So these needs will guide behavior toward a trajectory of growth and well-being. So one example is positive emotion. There are different kinds of positive emotions such as interest, enjoyment, and hope. So this type of needs, deficiency needs, the origin of the need, this kind of needs is the deprivation state in the body. And this type of needs is not associated with a state of deprivation. I think they are associated with the state of the needs are satisfied. And this is more emergency-like, but this is less urgent. Okay. So I think last week we talked about drive theory as a period history in the development of the theories about motivation. So we have a review of this theory today because drive theory, although the drive theory cannot really explain some motives, some non-biological, some motives that are not associated with the biology of the body, but it has a strong ability to explain why we have biological needs, why we have physiological needs. So here is a cycle here that starts from this box, physiological deprivation. So sometimes we have a state of deprivation in the body, such as lack of nutrition, lack of enough sleep. So this deprivation states will lead to a biological need, and a biological need will lead to a psychological drive. So based on drive theory by Hall, when the bodily deficit is growing and finally comes to the conscious level and creates a emotional tense, which is anxiety. So at this time, at this moment, a psychological drive is produced. So there is a psychological drive as a reaction to the bodily deficit or state of deprivation in the body. And the psychological drive will lead to motivated behavior. So for example, there is a lack of nutrition in the body, and this state of lack of nutrition will lead to a feeling of hunger and will create a drive to search the food in the environment. So as a result, the person start to move and look for food. So the motivated behavior will lead to drive reduction because this person will start to look for food, and finally the person has found the food and start to eat, intake the food, intake the nutrition. So when the person is eating food, also the drive is reduced because the bodily need is satiated. So the body is satisfied with the nutrition. So the drive reduction will lead to a satiated state. So for example, after eating a lot of food, I feel really full. So right now it's a satiated state. And then the state of deprivation is gone. So there's no biological need, there's no psychological drive anymore. So the meaning of a psychological drive is that it's a intervening variable between the bodily deficit and the outcomes, consequences. So with psychological drive, we can know that we have a state of deprivation in our body. So if the deprivation lasts too long time, we cannot survive. So to survive, we need to have a psychological drive to tell us that what we need to do to let our bodies to survive in the environment. So any questions about drive theory? I think this theory is kind of intuitive because we all have direct experiences of this process. So when our body lacks nutrition, we feel hungry, right? So we feel like anxious, negative emotions, and then we start to eat. And during the process we are eating, the drive is reduced because we have a more saturated state. After eating, our body go back to the balanced state. So there is no biological need anymore. So that's drive theory. Okay, so in the textbook here is the other framework that explains how this process works. So here are different concepts that we need to know at first. So we'll go back to this picture later. We'll talk about this concepts. So physiological need is a deficit biological condition. We know that. Psychological drive. It's a conscious psychological manifestation of the underlying biological need. So when we lack nutrition in our body, we know that, and we have a drive to search food. So that's a psychological drive. So we know there is a lack of nutrition on the psychological level. So psychological drive is responsible for energizing, directing, and sustaining goal-directed behaviors. And also here's a concept called homeostasis. It's a tendency for the body and bodily systems to maintain a stable internal state. So the homeostasis brings the body back to its baseline values. So if you learn biology, you have learned this concept, homeostasis. It's a state of balance. Homeostasis states is an indicator that the body works well. There's enough nutrition, there's enough water, there is an appropriate level of temperature, and there is enough rest. So under the state of homeostasis, the body is working well. And also negative feedback. Negative feedback is a physiological stop system. It's like a stop sign. So negative feedback tells people that it's time to stop. They drive reducing behavior because a homeostasis has been reached. So, for example, when we are hungry, we start to search food and eat. We keep eating, but when we stop eating, so when we are really full, there is a negative feedback from the body. So we know that okay, it's time to stop eating because there is already enough nutrition. The homeostasis has been reached, so we do not need any more food. So a negative feedback is really necessary in this process because it tells us when we need to stop the drive reducing behavior. So there cannot be too much something. There cannot be too much nutrition, cannot be too much water. If we need warmth, that can be too warm, which is really hot. Can be too cold, cannot be too cold, or cannot be too much sleep, right? So everything must be balanced. We need a certain amount of everything for the body. So when this perfect state is reached, that's homeostasis. So multiple inputs or outputs means that there are multiple ways of activation of psychological drive, and there are multiple behavioral responses. So, for example, if we feel hungry, what's the cause of it? Probably we lack protein. Probably we lack other kind of nutrition, such as what are there? Protein and what else?
Carbohydrates.
Yeah, different kinds of nutritions. We need them in the body. So different lack of one type of nutrition can lead to psychological drive. And also, a psychological drive can lead to multiple behavioral responses. So we can eat different kinds of food, right? So we can go to restaurants to eat American food, Mexican food, and so forth. Or we can cook by ourselves. So that may lead to different behavioral responses. Although that's just one drive, which is hunger. And next to our mechanisms. First one, intra-organismic mechanisms. Intra means inside. Intra. Organismic. It's a philosophy that a person is the active agency that has goals, has the abilities to interact with environments to satisfy this organism needs. So that's organism. Intra-organism mechanisms are biological mechanisms within the person associated with drive. So, for example, the biological structures such as brains, endocrine systems, and organs in the body. So these biological structures are intra-organismic mechanisms, and also there are extra-organismic mechanisms. These are environmental influences associated with those drives. So the influences can come from the environment, come from the society, from the culture, or even come from their own cognitions. Although cognitions are inside their brains, but in terms of the physiological needs, these cognitions are outside of the mechanism, of the biological body. So, such as the time of the day is the influence from the environment. The peer pressure is from the society, and the cultural beliefs about sex roles are from a culture. So all these influences from outside of the mechanism are actual organismic mechanisms. So let's just look at this picture. So this is the current internal state in the body. What the intra-organismic mechanism do is to monitor and regulate the homeostatic status in the body. So this mechanism will constantly monitor the internal state to see if the body reaches the homeostasis or not. If the current state is too low, such as lack of nutrition, so the lack of something will lead to this physiological need, and the physiological need will activate drive, psychological drive. So psychological drive will lead to multiple outcomes. The behavioral responses to the psychological drive. So for example, our body found that there is a lack of nutrition. The nutrition is too low, so that we know that we have a drive to reduce that. We have a drive to eat, to go to eat. So what we do is we go to eat, and the consequences of this behavior is that the homeostasis is reached in the body. So the multiple outcomes has the consequence on the current internal state. Because intra-organismic mechanisms are constantly monitoring the body, and they can know that if the level of nutrition is either too high or too low or too high. When it is too high, for example, we eat a lot of food, we just continue eating. At this moment, it is too high. There's too much nutrition in the body. So that will lead to negative feedback. A negative feedback signals the satiety in the body, and negative feedback will lead to multiple outputs as well. So we just stop eating. We quit. We finish our dinner or lunch or breakfast. So that it will have an impact on the current internal state. So we stop intaking food or nutrition. So here is a graph showing how this works. How psychological drives and negative feedbacks can help us to how the psychological drives and negative feedback can guide us behavior in order to maintain a homeostasis in the body. Are there any questions? No? What time is it?
3.
So next we'll talk about a specific type of physiological need, which is sex. So we just skip hunger and thirst. You can read the textbook, but we will not cover it. Those today, and those parts will not be in the exam. But we'll cover sex in this class. So researchers found that there are differences between men and women in terms of psychological desire and physiological regulation. So they found that for men, when there is a physiological arousal in the physical body, and then there is a psychological drive, yes. It means that when men are physically aroused by some stimuli in the environment, they have a psychological drive to engage in sexual behaviors. But for women, it's not the case. For women, sometimes their body, the physical body is aroused, but they're not really have a sexual drive, sexual desire to engage in sexual behaviors. Like means that, like even though their bodies can be physically aroused because of some external stimuli in the environment, but sometimes they just don't want to have sexual behaviors. So the correlation between the physiological need and psychological sexual desire is low, because sometimes it's not necessary that physiological need will lead to sexual desire. But you may ask, what are really associated with their women's psychological sexual desire? It is intimacy, not come from the body, but come from the relationships between that sexual partner. If that sexual partner has intimacy, high level of intimacy with a woman, so woman will have a really strong, really high psychological drive to engage in sexual behaviors. So what's the implication here? I mean, like, it seems like men are more like animals, more physical. Yeah, they're more physical. If there is a attractive woman there, and they will be physically aroused, and there is a sexual desire, no matter this woman is a stranger or a intimate partner. But for women, it's more likely that only if the partners, this man is intimate, has an intimate relationship with that man, the woman can have a sexual desire, psychological sexual desire, to engage in sexual behaviors. So that's the gender sex differences. And also, sexual behaviors can stimulate the release of oxytocin. Yeah. So oxytocin is a hormone for bonding. Can facilitate the more intimate relationships. Also, oxytocin creates a feeling of trust and relax. So the sexual behaviors can be good, can be pleasurable and rewarding. And next part is facial metrics. So in the textbook, the author claimed that there are some external characteristics that influence the sexual motivation. What does that mean to us? Means that, so if we see something, some people, some opposite sexes. So for example, for men, if we say women are physically attractive, we have more likely have a sexual motivation. But we see some women are not physically attractive, we will not really have a strong sexual motivation. So that's what it means. Some external characteristics of these people, it will influence our own sexual motivation. So some external characteristics are universal to all human beings, no matter you are a man or woman, no matter what cultures you are in, no matter what languages you speak. So these characteristics include health, youthfulness, and the capacity to reproduce. Because all these characteristics indicate that this opposite sex is ready to reproduce new generations. So these characteristics are attractive, more attractive to people. And also, what is facial metrics? It is a study of how people judge the attractiveness of the characteristics on faces of other people. So here is a face of a young girl, I think. So you can judge how physically attractive this young girl is from her face. So what kind of features people are looking for? They summarize there are three categories people are looking for, or three dimensions. Neonatal features. What is neonatal features? So these features let this person resemble babies. So it's indicator of usefulness, indicate that this person is young. So one example is large eyes and small noses. So if somebody has large eyes and small noses, these features are neonatal features. they tend to be more attractive. And also the second dimension is sexual maturity features, such as prominent cheekbones. So for men, that's only for men. So this part is high and wide, is a signal of maturity, only for men. So this feature is considered to be more attractive. And also the second dimension is expressive features. Means that with these features, people will think that this person will like to express more, like to have more positive emotions, such as the wide smile. So who can you think of? Who has a wide smile? Julia Roberts, right? You can say she has really big mouth, but it's a wide smile. It's an indicator of positive emotions, indicator of friendliness or something like that. Yeah. So people are looking for these three types of features. They think this type of three types of features are more attractive. And yeah, so people also have sexual scripts about what they should do in the sequence of events that happen during the typical sexual episode. So scripts are mental representations of the step-by-step sequence of events that occur during an event. So scripts are like, we all have scripts. So what we should do in the classroom as a student or as a professor, what we should do in the dining room. So we have a sequence by step sequence of what we should do. But also it's true for sexual scripts. There is a script or step-by-step sequence of what we should do in a sexual episode. So if the two persons, or the woman and man, they meet and have an encounter, and they engage in sex-related behaviors. If their own sexual scripts match, they have a similar sexual scripts, that's good. They have good night. But when they don't have consistent sexual scripts, means that their sexual scripts don't match up. It may result in a conflict. So the sexual behavior is not that rewarding or pleasurable. And also people have sexual schemas. So people have mental scripts about how they expect sexual, next one. People also have sexual schemas about themselves. So sexual schemas will influence their own behaviors. So they'll approach certain sexual behaviors but avoid other types of sexual behaviors because of the sexual schemas that they have. So schemas are mental representations of themselves. So if their behaviors are not consistent with their own self-concepts or their own schemas, they will lead to internal conflict. So that to avoid an internal conflict, they will engage some behaviors that are consistent with their sexual schemas. So cognition matters. How they think of themselves matters. Also, there are the evolutionary theories have explanations of why men and women are different. They found that genes or DNAs, the DNA codes, have a heavily influence on sexual behaviors and mating strategies of men and women. So men and women will have different mating strategies and sexual behaviors because of their own genes. So that's the explanation from the evolutionary theory. So they found that men want young and attractive mates, physically attractive mates, and women want powerful and high status mates. But both of the males and females want intelligent and kind mates. So have you learned? So all of you have learned evolutionary theories, right? How do you explain those phenomena with the logic of evolutionary theory? Who wants to answer that question? Yeah.
Well, like in nature, usually like the dominant alpha male, like animal like a lion, for example, the dominant male gets all the females.
Yeah. Yeah. So how does that explain this?
Well, I would assume that in the human sense, I guess what they're saying here is that a woman wants more of a dominant, like, high figure, who's successful or is able to kind of take initiative.
Yeah. Yeah, because the basic assumption in evolutionary theory is that all the traits that this animal or the human has are for the survival of this animal or human. So why they have different mating strategies? Because these mating strategies have the advantage to help them to survive in the environment. So why men want young and attractive mates? Because women can have babies, right? So they need to make sure that this woman can have babies, right? So they must be young and attractive. And for women, it's a different situation. They need somebody to take care of herself and her babies. So women need a man who is really powerful and high status, so that this man can support this woman and her babies with money or other types of resources. So that women want powerful and high status mates. But both of the males and females want intelligent, kind mates, because to be intelligent means that this person is smart, can adapt well in the environment. Kind, this person treats other people well. So that's a trait that they like. What time is it? 49? Good. Friday, we have discussions. And just come to this classroom. And the voting is due on 8 p.m.
Will we still be going over chapter